Okay, so we're here on harvest day, and in the distance Bernie is harvesting the parsley. I'll go and visit him in a minute. And here we're seeing Debbie harvesting some beautiful broccoli. Now these are Calabrese broccoli, Bellstar F1. There has been already one cut. You can see where the main Calabrese head was, and it was very big. They've all been harvested. And now there are some side shoots. So let's have a look at what Debbie is doing, which involves harvesting the heads that are ready. And this is what's she's been harvesting. Lovely broccoli, and very wisely she's left some of the stem in, which is really tender, and it adds a lot of value because it's a different texture, slightly different flavour, and makes for a more interesting product. So as you can see, the plants have got some side shoots which are bigger, and some which are still perhaps not as ready and can be left on to grow for another week. I was just showing that. So for that one, for example, you could cut it, but you could also leave it on. In this case, because we've got a lot of big ones, we might leave that one on. Okay. But if you wanted, you could harvest that and eat it. Obviously, we have to think ahead in terms of next week, and we've got a lot of these bigger ones. So it's worth, rather than leaving this, harvesting the big ones and leaving the smaller ones. Look at the size of these, they're really nice, aren't they? So at this stage you can see that it's about to go to flower. You see that the broccoli inflorescence, as it's called technically, is starting to get to the stage where it opens up. So it's best harvested now. If they go to flower, don't worry, the flower is edible and really nice. It's just not going to last as long in your fridge because it's not closed, it's open, so it goes wilted a bit quicker. And that is broccoli. So here Bernie's harvesting some parsley. Do you mind explaining to us what you're doing here, Bernie?
Yeah, so I'm looking for a nice bunch here, and I go nice low down, and then I cut it off. So then the bottom can start growing again. I look for any yellow parsley. This hasn't got any, so I'm then gonna put the rubber band on here, sort of 2 or 3 times. And then that's ready to go. And
Bernie has already made some nice bunches there. And as he was saying, the plant will recover from here. And with parsley, it's better to go down quite drastically, so it gets more vigorous and it recovers. And when you do that, also it stimulates the surrounding plants. If you leave it for too long without cutting it, then it starts going yellow in winter, and it's a waste. Whereas if you harvest it lower down, the new flush will be nice and green, and you don't waste as much. Thank you, Bernie.
Okay, pleasure.
Okay, so Paul has very diligently cleared this bed. There were carrots in it. I'm going to show you how it was. It was like this. So half of the bed was empty, and a portion of the bed, not as much as half actually, had carrots, and he harvested the carrots, and then he's done a bit of weeding, both by hand and with an oscillating hoe. Perhaps, Paul, do you want to demonstrate how the oscillating hoe was used?
Yeah, good timing, just about to do that.
Perfect, fantastic. So the oscillating hoe, you've seen it in another video perhaps in the past, but it's always worth, for those of you who are new to the channel. It's a very good tool because it slices through the top inch of the soil, and it has 2 blades, so you can push and pull and cut through any weeds, but also it's a good way to get that top mulch nice and fluffy, ready to be sown into. Sometimes you can get stuck into a root ball, so make it sharp. Notice that this is not disturbance. Some people think, oh, you dig, you shouldn't be disturbing the soil. We're not disturbing the soil, we're disturbing the mulch. There's no clay showing up, so we're only disturbing the compost on the top. If you start hitting the clay, it means that there isn't enough mulch, and that would be a problem because it's disturbing then the soil. So after this action, Paul removed the wood chip from the bed. And then next step will be sowing some green manures. So from carrots to green manures in, how long was that? Half an hour? So very fast, very quick. The soil is remaining undisturbed and covered with living plants. Anything you want to add, Paul?
The strings.
Oh, the strings are important, aren't they? To get a feel for what the area is that you're trying to work on. And if at this stage, if the wood chip in the pathways was a bit low, it would be a good time to top it up. All right, thank you, Paul. So this is the raking stage. where we get the bed nice and fluffy. And I was saying earlier about the mulch. So in this bed, this is 3 years old. So there is a lot of compost. We haven't added any compost at this stage because this is quite stable organic matter now. So even though with the oscillating hoe, Paul was going at least an inch deep, he wasn't encountering a lot of resistance at any of the underlying soil. If in your beds you haven't got to a stage where this is the case, and so they're younger or the situation is not as good yet, you want to stay a bit shallower with the oscillating hoe. You don't want to hit any of the underlying soil, and then you also want to add a little bit of compost if you're going to plant something like a cash crop after this. In our case, we're planting a green manure, so we don't really want to add any more compost, and we wouldn't need to even if we were to plant a cash crop, because the soil is really nice and fluffy. You can see this up to, down to almost 2 inches. There's very, very, very crumbly soil, which is a mix of organic matter, of compost, and the underlying clay. So it's fantastic stuff that's been worked by the worms, and it's mostly organic material really. We're not seeing much of the clay. The bits of clay that there are so small because they've been mixed by the worms, so that they're not clumps, so the danger of disturbing them is very low. So what do we have at the market today? Celery, squash, different types of squash, baby kale, spinach, red cabbage, rocket, cavallonera. We got some broccoli, different colours, sprouting broccoli, lovely leeks, baby leeks, salad bags with edible flowers, potatoes from Shillingford, cavallonera, parsley, chard, different colours, endive or endive, and then we've got some microgreens, just one further left, onions, more squash, and the carrots, and then we have the roots at the top, beetroots, different colours, watermelon radish, baby beetroots, Japanese type, pak choy, normal radishes, salad radishes, and then the squash. So a quick video to discuss and describe what salads you can grow in a greenhouse or polytunnel over winter in this country, in the UK, or in any climate which is similar to this. Now this is a climate where it doesn't freeze until it doesn't freeze heavily, I would say, and continuously until January, February. But it can freeze before the end of the year. Usually not too bad though. Also, this is a climate where it's very wet outside, so being in here, having plants in here, allows them to grow without wind and without rain, apart from the irrigation we give them if we need to. And this is a big advantage over the outside, because today, for example, it's been pouring down, literally buckets and buckets of rain, lots of wind, 40 miles per hour winds, and we've been harvesting in that, and it hasn't been nice. Plants get destroyed in those conditions. The plants we have outside have been adapted to those conditions since they were little, and so they're all right. But in here, obviously, they have a huge advantage. So let me just go through what we've got here. We've got some baby kale, some coriander. This, we call it baby kale. You can let it get as big as you want, but we have bigger kale outside, so we harvest this one very small to add it to salads. Red Russian and red rubble. At the back we've got lettuce, that's Brighton, variety of lettuce. Dill, landcress, really hot, spicy brassica salad. Red Grenoble Salanova. There's some garlic. So now we're not going to be here next year to harvest the garlic, so we didn't plant any. This is just some bulbs that were forgotten in the ground when we harvested them in July. But normally we would plant 2 rows of garlic in between the 3 rows of lettuces there, and so we would have tons of garlic in here growing at the same time as the lettuce without any interference, because garlic is a very vertical plant, and so it doesn't really shade anybody out. So more lettuces here, and there's different varieties there. That's called Gilad. Here we got some Salanova, some other Brighton, more Salanova lettuces, so mostly lettuces really here. Then we've got Choy Sum, which is this Chinese broccoli, very nice, very tasty, and it can be added to salad because it's a tender stem type of broccoli, very, very tasty. It's not really that broccoli-like, it's more, you can see it there, It's more like a mustard with a small broccoli shoot, which is broccoli looking shoot, which is really nice. More coriander, claytonia, winter purslane, really nice. And in spring it will give you flowers, which are edible as well. More landcress. What was that one? Sorry, chervil, lamb's lettuce. You could have transplanted or sown this a lot thicker than this, but that's the way it went. Dill, chervil, claytonia. We've seen all of these already, and there's more choysum here. It needs a bit of watering here. It's a bit dry. And we could have had more rocket. Actually, I don't think we put much rocket. Oh yeah, this is actually some. This is rocket and some is choysum. Here we go. So this is rocket, and this is cultivated rocket. So in here you have all the ingredients for salads that can, this can take you throughout the winter, depending on how much space you have and how many people you want to feed. This will take us until Christmas easily, but it would also, if we were to be here next year, would allow us to make salads again after a pause in January and February, from March until the mid part of April. And so this selection, you can use it as a reference if you want for your own polytunnel or greenhouse planting. The key is to keep them clean. So I'm going to give you a piece of advice. Look at these mushrooms in there. Keep them clean means that you want, even when you're not necessarily eating all of the salad, you don't want them to go like that where the leaves all touch, because then the leaves are going to start to rot, and then they attract slugs and they get diseases and stuff like that. So what I've done in this area, you can see it there, they were all like this, and I've harvested the outer leaves, removed any that were already damaged or started to rot. And if I keep them with airflow around the plant and airflow throughout the bed, lifted from the ground as much as possible in terms of harvesting the leaves that touch the ground or really on the ground like those, doing that process allows them to stay healthy throughout the winter, even when it gets very dark and very damp. Hope that helps. A bit of an unusual observation, or something that lots of people find quite not obvious, is the shine of plants. I was looking at this Cavallonero I was harvesting, and compared to its neighbours, its leaves have got an impressive level of shininess, which is due obviously to the reflective properties of the cuticle, which is the outside layer of the leaf. Now, usually this shine comes from oils and fats that the plant synthesizes in order to store energy. So it's a sign of extreme health, and you don't see it that often at this time of the year. Look at this, it's really impressively different from any of the other plants. Have a look. So this plant is going to be a lot more nutritious and healthy because it's had so much of an ability. It's been able to photosynthesize, respire, so produce all the energy and all the protein and all the sugars and carbohydrates that it needs to function. But it's also had enough to produce a surplus, and that surplus has gone, like it does in humans, into fat, and that fat makes the leaves really impervious to pests. So you can see that these are quite undamaged, but also very shiny. So these are very good oils, very good fats, and a sign of extreme health in a plant. And unfortunately there's only one that I can see that has got that. These guys are, they're looking healthy, but nothing like the extreme health of this plant here. So it's really interesting. Here you can see the green manures that our volunteers Bernie and Paul sowed a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, to be exact. So that's oats. I think this is mustard. Pretty sure that's mustard. And then we've got some field beans popping up. See the young shoots. This is rye, slightly darker, still a grass but slightly darker leaf. And I'm assuming this one to be rocket, but I'm not sure. So, oh no, this is a mix. I recognise it now. It's a mix of fenugreek, mustard, buckwheat. So it was a box that we had in a mix. So essentially, that's a mixed row, some of which will not survive the winter, but that's fine. Some of the species in here. And then we got rye, field beans, mustard, and oats. So beautiful mix there. I'll keep you updated on how it grows and how it fills up the bed it's quite satisfying to see things growing so fast this time of the year, and green manures are adapted to do that really well. Another principle here that I forgot to mention a few weeks ago when I did this, so every time we remove a Chinese leaf from this bed, I pop in a couple of seeds of field beans, and so you can see they've been popping up, filling all the gaps left by the Chinese leaf. So in time this bed will go very, very smoothly from Chinese leaf to field beans, and it's quite nice to see how the whole garden is really covered in living plants. There's green manures in these two beds, there's leeks, there's brassicas, there's no empty ground, no uncovered soil, a little bit of wool used to mulch the perennials down there, but it's nice and full, which is as it should be. So what's in our boxes? Today is I think the 10th of November. We are around the 10th of November. Apologies, I don't really know what the date is. So we got in our small boxes, we got chard, got some beautiful fennel, and some lovely baby leeks. Not that baby actually. And some salad bag. And then we've got what's in here, some lovely sprouting broccoli, both green and purple. Some radishes and some beetroot, some giant beetroot. So that's the small box. Then we have the large box. Let's have a look at the large box. So we got quite a few bags this week. It's not very often that we get so many bags, but stir fry mix with mustards and other things. Baby kale rather than a bunch. This week we have just a bag of baby kale. Then microgreens or baby sprouts and a salad bag. And that's the bags. Then we got some lovely fennel, potatoes. Let's have a look around here. Carrots, yellow and orange. Leeks. Either two small cabbages or a big one. And then we have my favourite bit, which is baby turnips. Japanese baby turnips, and I think that's it. So that's 10 items for the large box. And then we have the medium box, which is somewhat similar, just a fewer things. So we've got, let's have a look at this one, salad, beetroots, potatoes, chard, fennel, so a few smallish fennels rather than a big one, baby kale, salad I've said, rocket, so this is just salad rocket, and I need to add some bits actually. There's something missing, which is parsley, so they're going to have a bunch of parsley as well. So that's 8 items for the medium box. So Paul is harvesting carrots, and a question we get often is, how do you know that a carrot is ready? So there's 2 ways really. So when they're ready, usually you can see, and the brightness is not good, so you can see the tops are showing up. See that one there? Let me see. This is small actually. So these ones are showing up, and by the size of the tops you can judge whether it's the size you want to harvest it at or not. But another telltale sign is the thickness of the leaves at the base of the stem. So this one is showing up actually, but even if it wasn't, I would be able to tell that this is ready because of the thickness of the leaves. Now that snapped. So this is a nice diameter at least. Let's see if we can find some more at this end which hasn't been harvested yet. So you can tell there's one which is showing up, so the top is coming through the surface. Those 2. So then you can judge whether you want to harvest them at this stage or let them get bigger. It's your call. But for example, that one there, you cannot see the top really showing, but you can see how thick the base of the leaves is. And so you can pull it, and it's a beautiful long carrot. Again, this would grow a lot bigger if you let them and if it doesn't freeze. But now we had a very light frost, and some of them, because they were in the wettest part of the garden, they've started to rot. So Paul has been separating them. Some of them are here, but he had to cut the tip of the carrot because it was rotten, and the top bit is all right, but it's not going to taste as good, obviously. So that's carrots. Have I forgotten anything, Paul?
I don't think so.
You're very bright now. So something else we forgot to say earlier is harvesting technique. So some people ask, what do you do with the leaves? How can you quickly remove the tops? And so Paul is demonstrating now. Pull the carrot up, snap the top, and put it in the barrow. And Paul, you were saying something about your back resting, can you?
Well, it can get a bit back breaking. So my tip is do the separating so you've got a handful of these, and then when you've got a handful of those, it's normally about the time to rest your back. So chuck them in the wheelbarrow, and then you've had your break, and then you can carry on.
Fantastic. And another thing you might find is when you pull them, some of them might be very stuck at the bottom, and so you break the tops when you pull them up. And so either you use a fork if you're harvesting in a larger area, or a tiny fork, or in this case, because the soil is soft and wet, you can just really get your hands around the root of the carrot and wiggle it out. Yeah, so that one broke, and now Paul can perhaps show what I've just said. Yeah, so it's grabbing the top of the root and pulling it out, but that's only going to work in no-dig, wettish soil. Okay, let's look at cabbages then. So this is a monster red cabbage. Red cabbages you need to sow and plant quite early, May, June. Transplant out June, July. And I'm going to put it here for a moment. I'll show you different varieties. So that one is good in winter, but it also can ripen early in early autumn or late summer. This is a summer cabbage, pointy. This variety is called Greyhound, I think. And they're not white usually. I mean, they're green on the outside, but we clean the outer leaves and leave the exposed inner core, which is white. Very tender, a lot less dense than that one. You can use it for many things, but it's a summer cabbage, so slightly more tender leaves and very sugary. The red one is very sweet inside, but a lot more dense and slightly different texture. And these summer cabbages come in round and pointy versions. And then we got red cabbages I've shown you, and then we've got the Savoy cabbage. This is a very popular winter cabbage. Comes in different varieties. This is called Tundra, and like the name suggests, they're really hardy. They can be harvested in the snow, in the ice. They can take -20 frost and be fine outside, and you only cut them the day you need them. The outer leaves are very raggedy. You can use these leaves, they're a lot more fibrous than the other two cabbages, and you can use these leaves to wrap things and put them in the oven and make a nice fancy meal. So here you can see David, who is doing some amazing work cleaning this comfrey. So he's been through here and cut the leaves down. Very careful because there's some strawberry plants, and you see over the years we've added a lot of mulch with wood chip, and now by cutting the comfrey that way, we can put it into the compost, and this will die. It would have died off anyway. You see some of the leaves have already died down, and in January, when these bits become brown as well and it all dies off, it's a good time to lift it and divide it. You can do it any time of the year, but it's better if you do it after it's all gone brown. So the technique David is using, what's the tool that you're using, David?
So this is a Korea knife. It was made in Korea. It's got all the different measurements and depths you could use.
Very good.
I'm personally using it because it's very efficient to cut the comfrey with. In compost it provides lots of potassium, which I think is the symbol in the periodic table K.
Perfect.
Vitamin K. Oh, that might be different.
Yeah, that's a different thing. But yeah, K, that's amazing.
It helps as well give flavour to fruits and vegetables. So if you're wanting to get a lot more flavour into veg, then you need potassium, which is a good way of getting flavour.
And so you can add your comfrey, to your compost and then use the compost to grow the veg. Thanks, David. That's amazing.
Sorry.
Yeah, go for it. Do you want to say something else?
Use it as fertiliser. So if you buy a water butt, the wider the better because it rains a lot here. And you basically cut the comfrey, you put it in whatever container, pillow, whatever you have, and then just let it deteriorate. What's the best time to let it decompose for?
Well, usually at least a month, and the longer the better. It gets more concentrated. Yeah, and that's a liquid fertilizer. Very well pointed out, David. I'd forgotten about that. So you can use comfrey in several ways. Another way is to mulch with it, but obviously now slugs would love to grow, to kind of breed under it. So it's best to actually put it in the compost or make a liquid fertilizer like David suggested. And this is how the plants were before he cut them. And so you see we have a full bed of comfrey, just to keep cutting. I think this year David has done this job at least 3 times, no? So 3 lots of comfrey, but you could have done more, depending on how much you need. We only needed 3 because we have 3 cuts because we have a big bed, so that's enough. All right, thank you, David.
You're welcome.
It's box making day. We've been making boxes with the volunteers, and so I can show you what's in our boxes this week. The celery is starting to get septoria, which is this disease, but only the leaves are affected and the stalks are nice and beautiful. So we're giving celery for the last time, then carrots, potatoes. Potatoes are the only thing that doesn't come from our garden. This comes from our garden. It's Exeter, one of the best squashes on the market. Very sweet, like a melon. Spinach, salad, and then at the back we got some radishes and some leeks. So that's the medium box. That's something else for the market. Then in the large box we've got broccoli, sprouting broccoli. Then we've got radishes, beautiful kale. The leeks, purple top turnips, salad, carrots and potatoes. So that is 10 items for the, and the spinach as well, sorry, I forgot that, for the large box. And then we can have a look at the small box. There we go. So we got purple top turnips, coriander, the Chinese leaf, salad, beautiful squash, 1 kilo squash in this case, and cavolo nero. And that is 6 items, which makes a small box. And yeah, so that's it.